just to give an analogy, is I asked the question, before we were born into this earth realm, I asked the question, were you alive? What's the answer? Yes. Where were you alive? In the womb. In the womb of your flesh and blood mother. All right? Did you have a name? Most likely no. Except your Creator knew you. Your Creator knew who you were. He may have had a name for you. We don't know. All right? He may have had a title or some way of indicating that you are different than this baby over here that's in this mother's womb. All right? And sometimes the flesh and blood mother on this earth realm, they will name their baby before the baby is actually birthed. All right? So the next question I ask is, which follows this, is pretty logical, is when you were born through the birth canal, that live birth of the flesh and blood living soul coming out into this world, all right? In all normal cases, were you alive? Yes. Were you breathing? Yes. Could you move? Yes. Could you scream? Could you cry? Absolutely. How many of you had the name? Most of us didn't have the name. 30 seconds, 1 minute after we were born, we didn't have the name. So what I'm doing is I'm giving an analogy to show what I'm speaking of, that we are not the name. We go by the name. And if you go back years ago, decades ago, in the old black and white movies, the cowboy movies, usually it was the cowboy movies. You would see it, Gene Autry and some other names like that. You would hear the actors actually introduce themselves in the movie to some other character in the movie by, I go by the name, or the name is, and they put the definite article in front of their name. The name is. But rarely would you ever see them say, or hear them say, I am John Wayne. They would say, I go by the name John Wayne, or I go by John Wayne. And if you really want to start seeing some reactions, do it with what we call a public servant. It doesn't matter who the public servant is. It could be a clerk that's taking some money. It could be someone in a quote-unquote government building. Just try it. They ask you what your name is, and say, I go by David. I go by John. I go by Mary. And if you really want to get a reaction out of them, say, I go by the name David. I've had them respond to me all the time. All the time. Either they look at me in silence when their jaw drops open, or they look at me and say, you go by the name, huh? Oh, you go by the name. And they mock me. And I look at them and I say, yes, that's right. I go by the name. And I wonder if they really are cognitively aware of what I'm saying, or if it's the spirit that may be behind this whole system, in this big matrix system that we're living in, but we're not of it. We're living in it. Some of us are of it, and if we make ourselves of it with the system, or our hand contracting with the system. So this another analogy is, if you pull out what we commonly call an ID, and if you have someone say, that's you, isn't it? And they're pointing to the picture on the ID. Well, is that you? No. If they say that to me, I say, no, that's not me. And I've said it to them before. I've said it to the policy enforcers. Policy is a little bit longer than police, but it means the same thing. They're enforcing policies, codes, rules, and regulations of a corporation. The city of Dallas is a corporation, city of Irving's a corporation, city of Arlington's a corporation, city of wherever, Fort Worth, they're all corporations, and they all have corporate charters. And all these public servants are all under oath. They have an oath of office to uphold the corporate charter. And one of the things that the corporate charter is very, very clear about is that the corporation is not to violate the rights of the people. If we go into a summons, or if we go into an invitation, I should say, we, the living soul, we walk in and we're answering to that name. If we do not put a certified copy of the oath of office of that public servant sitting up there on that bench. If we don't put that in, and you can obtain it from the Secretary of State's office. Now, if you're given trouble about obtaining that certified copy, then you can invoke the oath of office by saying, for the record, upon your oath of office. That's all you have to say. It's for the record, and you are now invoking his oath of office. You will see a huge difference of how that case goes forward, how those proceedings go forward. For the record, because everything in a record court is for the record. That's why there's a recorder, a court recorder. What's called a court recorder. For the record, upon your oath of office. And you can't say it too many times. You can't say it you parrot. Just be a parrot. Everything you say, for the record. For the record, upon your oath of office. May I have your name, please? If you're in commerce and you're conducting your commercial affairs, don't you like to know who you're doing business with? I do. And I want it for the record. If I'm ever told, raise your right hand and swear, right? Well, isn't it only fair that the oath of office, that he has raised his right hand, or she has raised their right hand, isn't it only fair that for the record, that is invoked for the record, and you call that to remembrance for those proceedings? It's only fair. Try to get one of them to actually swear that they will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God. Right? Try to get any of them to do that. Try to get the prosecuting attorney to do that. Or the attorney for the quote-unquote fictitious plaintiff. I just mentioned something. I'm just flowing here, so sometimes you'll hear me go off on tangents. If you look in Black's Law Dictionary, 7th edition, Black's Law Dictionary, you look under fictitious plaintiff. And it says very clearly that a fictitious plaintiff is perpetrating a fraud upon the court. Isn't that wonderful? I think it's wonderful news. I think it's great. Because the day will come that Yahushua said, that day will come that they will grab you and they will drag you before the magistrates, before the judges. Take no thought in that day, in that hour, what you're going to say. For the Holy Spirit of your Creator, He will bring to your remembrance all things. And He will bring to you the words to say. But what do we need to do prior to that time? We need to study to show ourselves approved. All right? So